Please Hare Krishna, Mataji, please accept our humble obeisances.
Hare Krishna, my humble obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Okay, so let's start with the prayers to Bhagavatam. Sarva Shastrapti Piyusha, Sarva Vedeka Satphala, Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadhya, Sarva Loke Kadrik Prada, Sarva Bhagavata Prana, Srimad Bhagavata Prabho, Kalidvanto Deta Detya, Shri Krishna Parivartita, Paramananda Pathaya, Prema Varshakshirayate, Sarvada Sarva Sevyaya, Shri Krishnaya Namostute, Madheka Bandhu Matsangin, Madguru Manmahadhana, Mannishtar Kamadbhagya, Mad Ananda Namostute, Sadhu Sadhu Tadain, Ati Nichochatakara, Ana Muncha Kadachinmam, Premna Hrit Kanthayos Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraet Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadhamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Yasya Prasada Dakyopi Satya Sarvagatam Vrajet Sa Shri Chaitanya Devo Me Bhagavan Samprasidatu Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashate Deshatarine Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya So before we start, let's pray to Srila Prabhupada and our spiritual masters so that our session may be growthful and nourishing. Hare Krishna. So we are studying the 21st chapter of 3rd canto, and we covered till the 10th verse yesterday. So since it's in a sequence, let's start again with the 9th verse, just the translations. Anyway, there's no purport to 9 and 10. So let's start with 9 and then we'll continue.
Kardam Muni saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is free from material contamination, in his eternal form, effulgent like the sun, wearing a garland of white lotuses and water lilies. The Lord was clad in spotless yellow silk, and his lotus face was fringed with slick, dark locks of curly hair.
Text 10. Adorned with a crown and earrings, he held his characteristic conch, disc, and mace in 3 of his hands, and a white lily in the 4th. He glanced about in a happy, smiling mood, whose sight captivates the hearts of all devotees.
A golden streak on his chest, the famous costive gem suspended from his neck. He stood in the air with his lotus feet placed on the shoulders of them.
So the Lord is on Garuda, and this is how Kardama Muni saw him. Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport that by somewhere in the middle, by performance of yoga, Kardama Muni actually saw the Supreme Lord as he is. There is no point in seeing an imagined form of God after practicing yoga for 10,000 years. The perfection of yoga, therefore, does not terminate in voidness or impersonalism. On the contrary, the perfection of yoga is attained when one actually sees the personality of Godhead. That's the perfection of eyesight, to see the personality of Godhead. The process of Krishna consciousness is to deliver the form of Krishna directly. So see, we can see Prabhupada's mood and mission. Kardamuni saw the 400 form of the Lord, Narayan form. And now Prabhupada is talking about Krishna. So Prabhupada always keeps bringing us back to Krishna. So he's saying that the form of Krishna is described in the authoritative Vedic literature, Brahma Samhita. His abode is made of Chintamani stone, and the Lord plays there as a cowherd boy and is served by many thousands of gopis. These descriptions are authoritative, and a Krishna conscious person takes them directly, acts on them, preaches them, and practices devotional service as enjoined in the authoritative scriptures. Text 12.
When Kardama Muni actually realized the Supreme Personality of Godhead in person, he was greatly satisfied because his transcendental desire was fulfilled. He fell on the ground with his head bowed to offer obeisances unto the lotus feet of the Lord. His heart naturally full of love of God, with folded hands, he satisfied the Lord with prayers.
Yeah, so in the purport, Prabhupada describes about the authentic Patanjali system of yoga. And he says that Samadhi stage when one can see the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his partial form as Paramatma or as he is. And this is actually the Patanjali system of yoga to get situated in Samadhi. And in the first paragraph at the end, he says, if the existence of super soul and individual is admitted, then the impersonalist theory of monism is nullified. Therefore, some impersonalist and void philosopher twist the Patanjali system in their own way and pollute the whole yoga process. So I was hearing that some of these impersonalists and void philosophers, what they claim that they actually meditate on the super soul, like the Patanjali system, to reach Brahma. To reach Brahma, they meditate on the super soul. So that's how they have twisted the Patanjali system of yoga. And further down, Prabhupada says, according to Patanjali, when one becomes free from all material desires, he attains his real transcendental situation, And realization of that stage is called spiritual power. And after a few sentences, according to the monist, when a yogi becomes one with the Supreme and loses his individual existence, he attains the highest stage called Kaivalya. But actually, the stage of realization of the personality of Godhead is Kaivalya. The oneness of understanding that the Supreme Lord is fully spiritual, and that in full spiritual realization, one can understand that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead is called Kaivalya, or in the language of Patanjali, realization of spiritual power. His proposal is that when one is freed from material desires and fixed in spiritual realization of the self and the super self, that is called Chitta Shakti. In full spiritual realization, there is a perception of spiritual happiness, and that happiness is described in Bhagavad Gita as the supreme happiness, which is beyond the material senses. And towards the end, he again talks about Karda Muni saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his eternal form. Devotional service begins with the relationship of the Supreme Soul and the Supreme relationship of the individual soul and the Supreme Soul of Krishna and Krishna's devotees. And when one attains it, there is no question of falling down. So Prabhupada is talking about Sambandha Gyan, that when one realizes the relationship with the Supreme Self, that is when the devotional service begins. And then he says, real devotees of Bhakti Yoga accept only the material necessities of life absolutely needed to maintain the body and soul together. They refrain completely from all exaggerated material sense gratification. They are prepared to undergo all kinds of tribulation, provided they can make progress in the realization of the personality of Godhead. So this is that principle of surrender. Like, which principle of surrender is this? That they are prepared to undergo all kinds of tribulations, provided they can make progress.
ये ठीक है, आपके इसमें ये भी साथ साथ आता रहता है।
तो आपकी तो आता है।
मेरे काम
Which principle of surrender is this? Do you remember the 6 principles of surrender?
Krishna Rakshati Iti Vishwasu.
Krishna is no.
Okay.
No. This is accepting that what is favorable for spiritual progress. So they are willing to undergo any kind of tribulation as long as there is progress in the realization of the personality of Godhead. So accepting what is favorable for Krishna consciousness. Next, 13.
The great sage Kardam said, O supreme worshipable Lord, my power of sight is now fulfilled, having attained the greatest perfection of the sight of you, who are the reservoir of all existences. Therefore, through many successive births of deep meditation, advanced yogis aspire to see your transcendental form.
So Kardama Muni is realizing his great fortune that, the Lord has personally appeared in front of him. Prabhupada says, this is almost towards the end, when all the senses engage in relationship with the personality of Godhead, one's perfection is technically called Bhakti Yoga, which entails detaching the senses from material indulgence and attaching them to the service of the Lord. When one is freed from all designated conditional life and fully engages in the service of the Lord, one's service is called Bhakti Yoga. Karda Muni admits that seeing the Lord personally in Bhakti Yoga is the perfection of sight. So what is the perfection of sight? It's to see the Lord personally in Bhakti Yoga. That's the perfection of sight. Okay, 14.
Your lotus feet are the true vessel to take one across the ocean of mundane nescience. Only person deprived of their intelligence by the spell of deluding energy will worship those feet with the view of attain the trivial and momentary pleasure of the senses, which even person rotting in hell can attain. However, O my Lord, you are so kind that you bestow mercy even upon them.
Yeah, so here he's talking about the lotus feet of the Lord and how they act as a boat to take one across the ocean of mundane nescience. So in Bhagavatam, there are many references where the Lord's lotus feet are compared to a boat. Does anyone remember any reference?
Kunti Marani remembers.
What is the verse?
Nama Pankaj Nabhai.
How's that a boat?
Sorry,
Boat.
as a boat.
Yeah.
I misunderstood. Boat.
Lord's lotus feet are compared to a boat. Okay, so there are many verses. There's this verse in 10th canto, Samashitaye Pad Pallava Plavam. And then Mahatpadam Punya Yasho Murare. Yeah. And I can give you a few references and you can look it up later because we don't have much time. So I'm not going to go through each and every one of those. There is a reference in 4th canto, 22nd chapter, 39th verse, where the Lord's lotus feet are compared to boat, Potena. Then 10:2:30 and 10:14:58, which is Samashataya Pat Pallava Plavam. And then 10:1:5-7 also. And in the 11th canto, 11:5:33. So these are the references where the Lord's lotus feet are compared to a boat, an unsinkable boat. And by taking shelter of that boat, one can cross over the ocean of material nescience. So Prabhupada in the purport says, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 7th chapter, there are two kinds of devotees, those who desire material pleasures and those who desire nothing but service to the Lord. Material pleasures can be attained even by hogs and dogs whose condition of life is hellish. So he's saying that there are two kinds of devotees, and one of them is one who seeks material pleasure, and the other one is dedicated to the service of the Lord. And at the end, he says, actually, the intelligent practitioner of yoga should aspire for nothing else but to cross over the ocean of nescience by worshipping the personality of Godhead and to see the lotus feet of the Lord. The Lord is so kind, however, that even today persons whose brain substance is spoiled are given the benediction to become cats, dogs, or hogs and enjoy material happiness from sex life and sense gratification. The Lord confirms this benediction in Bhagavad Gita. Whatever a person aspires to receive from me, I offer him as he desires. Ye yathamam prapadante tam satheva bhajamyam. So how is this a benediction to become a cat, dog, hog? How is that a benediction? Rukmini?
Sorry, Mataji, just trying. I'm just thinking that a person is, it depends upon desire. If I desire to really achieve that lotus feet of Lord, Yathamam Prapadante, so Krishna will award me his eternal abode. That's my eternal abode also.
Yeah, but how is dogs, cats, and because you're saying because of desire? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, Mataji.
Thank you. Amal Charan Prabhu?
Maybe by Jagannath Rath Yatra sometime or someday they'll hear the names of the God
Okay.
in the form of plants,
No,
cats, or dogs.
From what I understand, Prabhupada is saying that even today, persons whose brain substance is spoiled are given the benediction to become cats, dogs, and hogs and enjoy material happiness from sex life and sense gratification. So them being in that particular species is a benediction. How do we understand that?
Because that is fulfillment of their desire.
Yeah, because how does one get a body? What is the driving principle to get a body?
Consciousness.
Yeah, one's desire, consciousness, right? And one's karma. So if somebody is desiring those kind of things, if somebody's consciousness is fixed there, then that's the kind of body they're going to get. That's the suitable body for them. So that is the benediction of the Lord, that he's providing that facility that whereby one can fulfill those desires. It's a facility, it's a facility so that if somebody has those kind of desires, those desires can be fulfilled in that particular body. So that is a benediction, right? It may not seem so to us, because for us, the benediction is if one is engaged in devotion service of the Lord. But see, those who are not engaged in devotional service, who are foolish, the Lord is making arrangement for them also so that they can enjoy the way they want to enjoy. 15.
Therefore, desiring to marry a girl of like disposition who may prove to be a veritable cow of planting in many married life, to satisfy my lustful desire, I too have sought the shelter of your lotus feet, which are the source of everything, for you are like a desired tree.
Rukmini, read the 14 and 15 together, the translation.
Your lotus feet are the true vessel to take one across the ocean of mundane nescience. Only persons derived of their intelligence by the spell of the deluding energy will worship those feet with a view to attain the trivial and momentary pleasures of the senses, which even persons rotting in the hell can attain. However, O my Lord, you are so kind and you bestow mercy even upon them. Therefore, desiring to marry a girl of like disposition, who may prove to be a veritable cow of plenty in my married life, to satisfy my lustful desire, I too have sought the shelter of your lotus feet, which are the source of everything, for you are like a desired tree.
Thank you. So essentially, Kardamuni is saying that, basically one should take shelter of your lotus feet to cross over the ocean of material essence. But only persons deprived of intelligence by the spell of deluding energy will worship those feet to attain something mundane or trivial. And then he says, I want to get married. So please, arrange in such a way so that I can get a girl of proper disposition who may actually prove to be a suitable wife for me. So in a way, he's implying that I'm a fool. I'm approaching you for a mundane desire. And we'll come to know later on that how it's, even though it seems very mundane at this point in time, it's not really a mundane desire. So he's approaching the lotus feet of the Lord for getting a suitable wife. And there are many lessons in this, and we will discuss this in a bit. Rai Ramananda Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. I have one question, Mataji. We hear many times that we should take shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord. We should serve the lotus feet of the Lord. What exactly means by the serving the lotus feet? Actually, it is not related.
Serving the lotus feet of the Lord essentially means following in the instructions. Following in his footsteps, following in the footsteps of his devotees. So whatever instructions have been given by the Lord is essentially what it means by serving, not physically really serving, but serving the instructions.
Okay.
Rukmini?
Mataji, to marry a spiritual, to having a spiritual spouse is a material desire or a spiritual desire?
Depends on why do you want a spiritual spouse. If you want a spiritual spouse because, okay, I want to get married because I have certain desires, so it would be nice to have a spiritual spouse. So, then it could be material, but the idea is that if the spouse is spiritual and we are going to progress together in Krishna consciousness, we are going to serve the Lord and his devotees, serve his instructions, then it is spiritual. It depends on the consciousness. Like we have to always remember this, the activity can look whatever externally, but internally the consciousness behind it will determine whether it is spiritual or material. We may do a lot of things. We can go to the temple and sing kirtan the whole day, and yet it could be material if the consciousness is not proper. Externally it looks like a spiritual activity, but if the consciousness is not proper, it can very well be a material activity. So it is a consciousness behind an activity that determines the result. Okay. So Prabhupada says, in spite of his condemning persons who approach the Lord for material advantages, Kardamuni expressed his material inability and desire before the Lord by saying, although I know that nothing material should be asked from you, I nevertheless desire to marry a girl of like disposition. And beginning of second para, Prabhupada says, Karda Muni wanted to have a wife of like disposition because a wife is necessary to assist in spiritual and material advancement. It is said that a wife feels the fulfillment of all desires in religion, economic development, and sense gratification. If one has a nice wife, he is to be considered a most fortunate man. In astrology, a man is considered fortunate who has great wealth, very good sons, or a very good wife. Of these three, one who has a good wife is considered the most fortunate. And at the end of this paragraph, Prabhupada says that, in this third paragraph, Prabhupada says that there are different kind of people who go to, Uma. He could have gone to Uma to ask for this benediction because that's what normally people do. So, but Karda Muni approaches the Lord. Why? He does not, he only wants to, in any case, everyone should worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for he will fulfill everyone's desire. The advantage of worshipping the Supreme Person is that even if one has desire for material enjoyment, if he worships Krishna, he will gradually become a pure devotee and have no more material hankering. So, akama sarva kama va moksha kama udharadhi tivrena bhakti yogena yajate purusham param. Right? That whether one has material desire, whether one is desiring liberation, whether one is without any desire, one should approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One should approach Krishna in every case for fulfillment of any kind of desire, whether it is a material desire, whether it is a spiritual desire. And we will see this as a practical exercise in fourth canto, that how, whatever desire you may have, if you approach Krishna, then he will gradually become purified and there'll be no desire, no material hankering in the end. We'll see this in the fourth canto. Which example is that?
Dhruv Maharaj.
Dhruv Maharaj. Yes, we'll see in the case of Dhruv Maharaj. Rukmini, you have a question?
Yes, Mataji. Mataji, I want to ask, like in the case of Dhruv Maharaj, he was totally having a material desire, but later he was repenting that, and it was really a punishment after knowing everything, and to have a planet like this, it was a punishment for him. So Mataji, I was thinking that again, I want to come to the previous question. So there should be a total right consciousness to have a spiritual spouse, otherwise it will entangle, right?
Of course. Any material
Tinge
tinge will
of-
be bondage.
Hmm.
Any material tinge will result in bondage. Yeah, true.
And Mataji,
Very dangerous.
Yes. And Mataji, one more question. Will it not like, as we say that, in fact, that before marriage also, we have parents, brother, and so many relations we have. And in fact, it is not easy to come out of attachment from these relations. So Mataji, will it be not very difficult that one, if it comes into Grihastha ashram and to come out of attachment there, because now goal is very clear. So
Yeah, it actually depends. Most of the people will enter Grihastha ashram because they need that kind of support. So, very few people are there who can actually become dependent on the Lord completely and can do without Grihastha ashram. But most of the people will need that kind of support emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically. So it's okay. It's okay. Actually, one should not act beyond one's level. One should act at the level one is at, because then you can make progress. One has to be realistic about where one is and accept the situation and then say, okay, this is my situation. And Grihastha ashram, if properly conducted, is a very, very growthful ashram actually. And it is one of the most austere ashrams, even though Brahmachari or Sannyasi ashram may look like more austere, but it is Grihastha ashram which is the most austere. Why? Because all the facilities for sense gratification are there. They're dangling right in front of you, and then you have to resist. So it is a very austere ashram, and it requires continuous balance. You always have to be very conscious of where you're going, what you need to do, what you should not do, what is entangling, what is not entangling. And good Grihastha ashram is the breeding ground for all the three ashrams. If the Grihastha ashram is not there, if it's not properly situated, then there's no good brahmachari. And good grihasthas result in good vanaprasthis and sannyasis. So it's actually the base for all the other three ashrams. So we have this tendency of looking down upon grihasthas and saying, oh, look at that fallen grihastha. But actually, grihastha ashram can be extremely elevating. You can learn so much tolerance, you can learn so much patience, you can learn so much selfless service by being properly situated in grihastha ashram.
Thanks.
Jagat Mataji.
Mataji. Mataji, thank you for this conversation. Mataji, desires are sometimes seem to be material desires, are spiritual desires, and some seem to be spiritual desires, are material desires. So, it's all about consciousness. And sometimes, if I analyze myself, the seem to be spiritual desire, driven by the material desire. So I think I'm able to. So how can I justify or balance, or how can I make it use it to grow in Krishna consciousness, or make it Krishna conscious?
Thank you. Very wonderful question. Thank you for asking this question. Yeah, a lot of times what may seem spiritual may actually be a deep-rooted material desire. And we are using Krishna consciousness as an outlet to fulfill that material desire. For example, like I said, that, one could be very good kirtaniya and one, thinks that I'm actually going to do kirtan for the pleasure of the Lord. But actually, deep-rooted desire is puja la pratishtha. That, okay, a lot of people are going to say, see, you sang so well. You are such a nice kirtaniya. So that is deep-rooted thing, is a material desire. But I'll answer this in two levels, that even if the deep-rooted desire is material, but by engaging in Krishna conscious activity, there'll be some purification. It's not that it will go completely waste. There'll be some purification, but that purification is going to be slow. So what one needs to do is, by reflecting deep inside one's heart, introspection is absolutely necessary for spiritual progress. So introspecting deep within our hearts, we can actually see for ourselves what is the root of this desire. Is it really spiritual or is it really material? And once we encounter the root, then we can work upon it. Then we can remind ourselves that, no, this is not the purpose. I don't want to do this for this purpose. And as soon as some pratishtha comes, immediately we just thank our spiritual masters that it is all because of you. So slowly, as we get in this habit, then we can come out of that, that rut that we are in. Is that okay? Okay. So, yeah. 16.
Text 16. O my Lord, you are the master and leader of all living entities. Under your direction, all conditioned souls, as if bound by rope, are constantly engaged in satisfying their desires. Following them, O embodiment of religion, I also bear oblations for you, who are eternal time.
Okay, so Prabhupada says, a question may be raised. This is in second paragraph. A question may be raised, since Karada Muni was advanced in spiritual life, why then did he not ask the Lord for liberation? Why did he ask for a mundane boon? So any guesses? Why did he ask for such a mundane boon?
Because that was the service assigned to him by Brahma, that he was supposed to do the progenitor.
Have progeny. Yes, it is a service. Rukmini, same. You had the same answer?
Same.
And he wanted to have Kapil Muni as his son.
Yeah, because he was going to have the Supreme Lord as his son. Okay. What else?
to show the path to general people in general, because not everyone is getting liberated by this method. So showing by his example
To
that
set an example on how to have a proper progeny.
in Grest ashram also we can elevate.
Yeah. We read about it yesterday that first they used to make their life perfect and then they would go and have a progeny. So to set an example for other people. And also one more reason, that is the service is a higher platform than liberation. So instead of just trying to get liberated, it is better to serve. Service is a higher platform than liberation. So these are some of the reasons why Kardama Muni asked for this boon. So Prabhupada is saying, why did he want to enjoy material life in spite of his personally seeing and experiencing the Supreme Lord? The answer is, now Prabhupada gives a different angle. The answer is that not everyone is competent to be liberated from material bondage. It is everyone's duty, therefore, to enjoy according to his present position. But he says it's everyone's duty to enjoy according to one's present position. That is to act on the level you are at, but under the direction of the Lord or the Vedas. The Vedas are considered to be the direct words of the Lord. The Lord gives us the opportunity to enjoy material life as we want. And at the same time, he gives directions for the modes and processes of abiding by the Vedas so that gradually one may be elevated to liberation from material bondage. The conditioned souls who have come to the material world to fulfill their desires to lord it over material nature are bound by the laws of nature. The best course is to abide by the Vedic rules, and that will help one to be gradually elevated to liberation. So Prabhupada here is talking about gradual liberation, and in many places, and he says that instead of going through this gradual Vedic method, what should one do? What does he recommend? Yeah, Rukmini?
Just accept the path of Bhakti Yoga.
Yeah, chant the holy name as given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and make one's life perfect. Don't have to go through the gradual process. You can straight away take the process of Bhakti Yoga. Okay. Yes, Mataji, you have a question?
Mataji, can you elaborate more the question, the try to enjoy according to his present position?
Yeah, that see, if one's level, it depends on what one's level is. To act realistically on that level and not imitate somebody at a different level. For example, I'll give a very mundane example. If your level is such that you cannot do nirjala fasting, your body does not allow, your mind does not allow you, whatever you cannot do. But you hear in Shastras that nirjala fasting is the best form of fasting. And then you try to imitate others. What will happen? The entire day, your consciousness is going to be absorbed where?
And ended up in hospital. I'm not doing it from last 2 years.
Either you'll end up in the hospital or your consciousness is going to be absorbed in the fact that you've not eaten and when will you get the next meal? Because mentally, physically, spiritually, we're not at that level. So what is the best thing to do? What Prabhupada, what he recommends, that eat but serve. Eat and be Krishna conscious. But eat the food which is according to, say, fasting, which is allowed in fasting. And be Krishna conscious, serve more, chant more. So this is what is acting according to one's level, to be realistically placed where you are really at. And slowly then you can actually become more and more austere, but slowly, not straight away jumping to that level that we heard one day in a lecture, that fasting, nirjala is the best form of fasting. Next time onwards, I'll do nirjala. So it doesn't work like that. So slowly you can come to that level that, one time I'll take prasad, then sometimes just water, milk, fruits, uncooked food, then, just liquids. So there are different levels of fasting, and according to one's level, one can choose which one really works. Yeah. So 17.
However, persons who have given up stereotyped worldly affairs and the beastly followers of these affairs, and who have taken shelter of the umbrella of your lotus feet by drinking the intoxicating nectar of your qualities and activities in discussion with one another, can be freed from the primary necessities of the material body.
Yeah, so he's saying that who have given up stereotyped worldly affairs. What are stereotyped worldly affairs?
By just sleeping, eating, waiting, and defending?
Yes, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. These are stereotyped worldly affairs. And he says that one who has taken shelter of the umbrella of your lotus feet by drinking the intoxicating nectar of Krishna Katha, your qualities and activities. And for such a person, he can be freed from the primary necessities of the material body. So Prabhupada says in the purport that this is second paragraph, constant transmigration of the soul from one body to another is the cause of suffering in material existence. This conditioned life in material existence is called samsara. One may perform good work and take his birth in a very nice material condition, but the process under which birth and death take place is like a terrible fire. Sri Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, in his prayer to the spiritual master, has described this. Sansar, or the repetition of birth and death, is compared to davanal, to a forest fire. A forest fire takes place automatically without anyone's endeavor. By the friction of dried wood, and no fire department or sympathetic person can extinguish it. The raging forest fire can be extinguished only when there is a constant downpour of water from a cloud. The cloud is compared to the mercy of a spiritual master. By the grace of the spiritual master, the cloud of the mercy of the personality of Godhead is brought in, and then only when the rains of Krishna consciousness fall can the fire of material existence be extinguished. So Prabhupada is saying that the mercy of the Lord is transmitted through the mercy of the spiritual master. He is the medium to get the mercy of the Lord. And only by getting this mercy can one actually come out of this material existence, this fire of material existence. And at the end, Prabhupada says, chanting and hearing the glories of the Lord is described here as Tvad Gunavada Siddhu. Only by drinking the nectar of chanting and hearing the pastimes of the Lord can one forget the intoxication of material existence. Okay, next.
Your wheel, which has 3 naves, rotates around the axis of the imperishable Brahman. It has 13 spokes, 360 joints, 6 rims, and numberless leaves carved upon it. Though its revolution cuts short the lifespan of the entire creation, this wheel of tremendous velocity cannot touch the lifespan of the devotees of the Lord.
So this, that the wheel of tremendous velocity cannot touch the lifespan of the devotees of the Lord. If I remember correctly, this is one of your memory verses. Does anybody know which verse this is? Harati vai pumsam udyan astanchaya naso tasyartaya shano nito uttam shloka vartaya. That one who's engaged in the glories, in singing the vartaya, like varta, by talking about, by having a discussion on the glories of uttama shloka, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for that person, by setting of the sun and rising of the sun, that person does not lose his life, because by rising sun and setting of the sun, with each passing day, the lifespan is getting reduced. But a person who's engaged in Krishna Katha, for that person, that fear is not there. So here in the translation, he talks about 13 spokes. What could be these 13 spokes? 360
Material
joints.
elements, Mataji?
No, 13 spokes. He's talking about the
Adhik
wheel.
Mas?
Yeah, 13 months, including the Adhik Mas. 360 joints. This wheel has 360 joints, means 360 days. According to Vedic calendar, 360 days, 6 rims,
Seasons.
6 seasons, numberless leaves, moments,
Shape of
moments. And he says your wheel, which has 3 naves. What are these 3 naves? 3 groups of 4 months each. These are the 3 naves. So he's saying the time factor cannot, in purport Prabhupada says the time factor cannot affect the span of the devotees, span of life of the devotees. In Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that a little execution of devotional service saves one from the greatest danger. The greatest danger is transmigration of the soul from one body to another, and only devotional service to the Lord can stop this process. And in the end, he says, the time factor, however, cannot touch the lifespan of the devotees. In other words, it is stated, and this is Prabhupada quoting 2317. In another verse, it is stated that when the sun rises and sets, it takes away the life of all living entities, but it cannot take away the life of those who are engaged in devotional service. Time is here compared to a big wheel which has 360 joints, 6 rims in the shape of seasons, and numberless leaves in the shape of moments. It rotates on the eternal existence Brahman. Next.
My dear Lord, you alone create the universe. The personality of Godhead, desiring to create these universes, you create them, maintain them, and again wind them up on your own energies, which are under the control of your second energy called Yog Maya. Just as a spider creates a cover, its own energy.
Yeah, so here in the purport, Prabhupada gives the example of a spider, and he says the spider is an individual living entity, and by its energy, it creates a cobweb, plays on it, and whenever it lies, it winds up the cobweb, thus eating the clay. When the cobweb is manufactured by the saliva of the spider does not become impersonal. Similarly, the creation and manifestation of the material or spiritual energy does not render the creator impersonal. So this is a very common example. A lot of times this example is used about the creation, and it is compared to a spider and how spider creates a web and lets it be there for a little while and then swallows the entire web again. So we'll see that actually Maitreya describes creation in this particular canto 3 times. In the beginning, then we are seeing just now, like last chapter we saw, and also in the 26th chapter, when he will talk about the material elements. Again, the creation will be described. And the idea is that it is a facility for the conditioned souls to enjoy. Material creation is there to give a facility to conditioned souls to enjoy. So when there is this facility for a conditioned soul to enjoy, then what is the need to surrender? Why should one surrender? Because this facility is for us to enjoy. Then why should one surrender? Rukmini?
Nothing material can satisfy our soul. We are a spiritual being. Only the loving devotional service of the Supreme Lord can satisfy us. And if we do the enjoyment, that we will not satisfy it. And if we serve Lord, it will not have the sachi. That's it, Mataji. Sorry.
Thank you. Nice. Mataji.
Yes, Mataji, if we try to enjoy, it brings only suffering only.
Yeah.
We want to be happy, we have to surrender ourselves to Krishna.
Yeah, we see that time foils everyone's plan. We may have like really grand plans to enjoy, and time completely frustrates those plans and devours our life. And so what happens? It crushes all our attempts to enjoy in this material world to dust. So that is why it is important to surrender, because whatever plan we may have to enjoy, and there may be a facility to enjoy, but we cannot enjoy. It is not possible. So that's why one needs to surrender. Okay. 20.
My dear Lord, although it is not your desire, you manifest this creation of gross and subtle elements just for our sensual satisfaction. Let your causeless mercy be upon us, for you have appeared before us in your eternal form, adorned with a splendid wreath of tulsi leaves.
Yeah. So Prabhupada says in the purport that it is clearly stated here that the material world is not created by the personal will of the Supreme Lord. It is not Lord's desire. It is created by the external energy because the living entities want to enjoy it. This material world is not created for those who do not want to enjoy sense gratification, who constantly remain in transcendental loving service and who are eternally Krishna conscious, Nitya Siddhas. This material world is not for Nitya Siddhas. And then Prabhupada says towards the middle of this purport, Krishna is so kind that he allows the sense-enjoying living entities a separate world created by him to enjoy as they like, yet at the same time he appears in his personal form. The Lord unwillingly creates this material world, but he descends in his personal form or sends one of his reliable sons or a servant or a reliable author like Vyasadeva to give instruction. He himself also instructs in his speeches of Bhagavad Gita. This propaganda work goes on side by side with the creation to convince the misguided living entities who are rotting in this material world to come back to him and surrender unto him. Therefore, the last instruction of the Bhagavad Gita is this: give up all your manufactured engagements in the material world and just surrender unto me. I shall protect you from all sinful reactions. So, Prabhupada is talking about the compassion of the Lord, his mercy, that even though he does not want to create it, but he creates it because the living beings want to enjoy separately from him. And it's not that he just does it and says, okay, now just, get lost and just stay there. No, he knows that we cannot be happy there. So he makes arrangements of different ways by giving his, giving his instruction in the form of Shastra, by personally appearing, by sending his messenger, sending his servant to give us spiritual enlightenment so that we can make our lives perfect and return back home, back to Godhead, where only we can experience true bliss. So this is his compassion. Next.
I continuously offer my respectful obeisances unto your lotus feet, of which it is worthy to take shelter, because you shower all benedictions on the insignificant. To give all living entities detachment from fruitive activity by realizing you have expanded these material worlds by your own energy.
So Kardama Muni is saying that you give both kind of blessings. You shower all benedictions on the insignificant means you give them the facility to enjoy, and to give all living entities detachment, that if somebody wants to be detached, you give that facility also. So both kinds of mercy is there. You shower both kind of mercy. And in the purport, Prabhupada talks about everyone, therefore, whether he desires material enjoyment, liberation, or the transcendental loving service of the Lord, should engage himself, offering obeisances unto the Supreme Lord, because the Lord can award everyone his desired benediction. In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord affirms, "Ye yathamam prapadante," anyone who desires to be a successful enjoyer in this material world is awarded that benediction by the Lord. Anyone who wants to be liberated from the entanglement of this material world is given liberation by the Lord. And anyone who desires to constantly engage in his service in full Krishna consciousness is awarded that benediction by the Lord. So he's given all, all facility. If you want to enjoy, okay, there's facility through ritualistic sacrifices, through yagyas. If you do yagya, you can be materially happy in this world. If somebody wants liberation, then what does he do? He actually provides that facility where people can get liberation after being disgusted from material enjoyment. And if somebody wants to serve him, that facility also is provided by him. And at the end, he says, the conclusion is that one should worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead for any benediction The word kama varsham is very significant, for it indicates that he satisfies the desire of anyone who approaches him, whatever may be the desire. But one who sincerely loves Krishna and yet wants material enjoyment is in perplexity. Krishna, being very kind towards him, gives him an opportunity to engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord so that he gradually forgets the hallucination. So what is this hallucination? What is the hallucination of a jiva?
That he is the enjoyer.
That he's the enjoyer, and
we can enjoy this material world.
we can enjoy, we can be happy in this material world, we can enjoy this material world, and
By being separated from the Lord.
yeah, by being separated from the Lord, and
I am the body.
I'm the
Body.
yeah, I'm this body, and all these bodily relations are mine. Aham mameti. What else? I'm the controller. I can control everything. So this is the hallucination of a living entity. And in 11th canto, there's this nice set of verses, 11, 20, 27, 28, where it said that Jasha Dhumat Kathasu Nirvinna Sarva Karmasu Ved Dukhatmakan Kaman Parityagi Pi Anishwara. So the Lord says, having awakened faith in the narrations of my glories, being disgusted with all material activities, knowing that all sense gratification leads to misery, but still being unable to renounce all sense gratification, my devotee should remain happy and worship me with great faith and conviction. Even though he sometimes engages in sense enjoyment, my devotee knows that all sense enjoyment leads to a miserable result, and he sincerely repents such activities. So repentance, knowing that, okay, I am not able to renounce sense gratification completely, and that repentance is very, very purifying. By that true repentance, one can eventually get rid of this tendency to enjoy separately from the Lord. Next.
Maitre resumed, sincerely extolled in these words, Lord Vishnu, shining very beautifully on the shoulder of Garud, replied with words as sweet as nectar. His eyebrows moved gracefully as he looked at the sage with a smile full of affection.
Yeah, so when you read this, what is the impression that comes to the mind? He's shining very beautifully on the shoulders of Garuda and replied with words as sweet as nectar. His eyebrows moved gracefully as he looked at the sage with a smile full of affection. That he is a person, he has feelings, he has his face reflects those feelings. So he's a person, he's not somebody who's there and, we just approach him for certain things and that's it. He's a person. And if he's a person, what does it mean?
He's a person,
Yeah.
and we should have a relation with him.
Yeah, him being a person means that there should be some relationship. If there is a person involved, there has to be a relationship. So that is actually the key to understand from the pages of Bhagavatam that Krishna is a person and I need to develop my relationship with him. So Prabhupada in the purport says, the word Vachasamritena is significant. When the Lord speaks, he speaks from the transcendental world. He does not speak from the material world. Since he is transcendental, his speech is also transcendental, as his activity and everything relation to him is transcendental. Then he says, the sound of this material world and that of the spiritual world are completely different. How are these two sounds different? What is the different impact of these sounds? Material sound versus transcendental sound, spiritual sound. How are they different?
One is eternal.
One is eternal. One is eternal. Okay.
The other is mundane. We get bored of it, or we want to.
Yeah,
we can't.
can hear it. We can hear it for some time. Like Prabhupada gives an example that if we chant, say Coca-Cola, how long can we chant? After a while, we'll get bored. But we've been chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, and we are not bored. Every time we try to chant properly, it gives us a special bliss that is not experienced anywhere else. What else is the difference?
But by material mundane song, we become more conditioned.
Yeah, the mundane
and
sound
gross
is binding. Good. But mundane sound is binding, and the transcendental sound is liberating. What else?
Spiritual sound is
Satisfaction.
Rukmini?
Satisfaction and satiation.
Satisfaction and satiation. Can you describe what you're trying to say?
We will not get satisfied from any of the material song, and we will not get.
Okay, so there'll be no satisfaction by material sound. Okay, Priya Satyabhama?
Mataji, the transcendental sound is the representation of the Lord himself. It is non-different from the Lord. Mundane can never be equal or be representation of the Lord.
Yeah, and Amal Charan Prabhu?
spiritual sound is awakening, like in case of Brahma.
Yeah, it is awakening. And we come across this verse in the 5th chapter of 1st canto, Tadvad Visargo. So in that it is said that anything spiritual is, what does it do? It causes a revolution in the heart. It is the source of a revolution in the heart. So that's the difference. So Prabhupada says the sound of this material world and the sound of spiritual world are completely different. And then at the end he says, when a devotee praises the glories of the Lord is very satisfied. And he bestows his transcendental benediction upon the devotee without reservation, because he's always causelessly merciful towards his devotee. Next.
The Supreme Lord said, having come to know what was in your mind, I have already arranged for that for which you have worshipped me, well through your mental and sensory discipline.
Okay, so the Lord is saying that I know what is in your heart and I've already arranged for that circumstance. So it's a similar thing when Brahma asked for, asked for creative energy and prays for that. So Krishna says that I know what you want and I've already arranged for this. So my question is that the Lord in the heart knows, right? Here Krishna is saying that I know. The Lord is saying, I know, and I've already arranged for it. So should we ask or not ask? Rukmini?
Mataji, as we just discussing that Krishna is a person. If I really want to have a relation with a person, I will try to talk to that person. This is the, by listening him, hearing about him, and by, feeling expressing my feelings. So the relationship is very important. So it is important.
Okay, thank you. Jagat Mata Mataji?
Yes, Mataji, I agree with Rukmini Mataji that he's a person, and in that, yes, I know, but it's need reciprocation. उनके पास नहीं जाएंगे तो किसके पास जाएंगे?
Yeah, so there's
in mundane relationships also, many times what the other person is wanting or wanting to say, but still sometimes you want to hear. So that is how the relationship actually works.
Okay, so isn't it that he is already there as a Paramatma? He knows. So why unnecessarily go and ask him that, okay, do this, give me that? Isn't that true? Ganga Shakti?
Mataji, I think by asking, we are establishing a platform for reciprocation. So because he's a person and because we need reciprocation, and by our surrender, it's an expression of love or expression of accepting his authority. So we are showing that, we want to have a reciprocation with you, therefore we come to you.
Okay. Rukmini?
Mataji, it doesn't that if I'm asking something, I will ask material. I can ask forgiveness. I can ask for his acceptance. So this is what we do. So
okay.
This is yes.
Thank you, Manohar Dvish Prabhu.
Krishna Mataji, the devotee is a cover still in Bhagavad Gita. He says that he is Anumanta. So somebody is there to fulfill our desire, but we are here to ask for the desire. So whatever we ask, he will fulfill. It is depends on our desire only. Thank you.
So whatever you ask Krishna, he will fulfill?
Yes, it is our desire.
Yeah, but will he fulfill all your desires, whatever you ask?
Yes, because we see that in mundane world, the people who are doing wrong things are also, desiring to do that. And
yeah, but
they,
my question is that tomorrow, if you want to become like Ambani and you ask Krishna, will you become like Ambani?
yes, why not? Because,
Okay.
the
how many people agree with that? How many people agree with that? Anybody has any other perspective on this?
I don't agree with it.
You don't agree with it. Okay, why?
Because sometimes, yes, okay, sometimes he grant and sometimes he don't grant. And when he don't grant our wish, it means he want it that way only. Whether we suffer or he don't want us to the way.
Okay, Rasikpriya Shyam Prabhu.
If everything was to be granted, then it is like being an order carrier. So he is not an order carrier. So his sanction is dependent upon many factors.
Okay, so many hands are raised, and if you have any different point, then please speak.
We grant whatever is good for us.
Okay, he'll grant whatever is good for us. Okay, and any point which we have not covered so far?
Mataji, won't the principle of Yogakshema wahan mein hum be applicable here?
What is the principle of Yogakshemam Vahamayam?
That I give you what you lack. I don't remember the second half of it, and I'm just not able to recall.
And I maintain what you need.
Yes, I maintain what you need, and I'll give you what you lack, not what you desire. Not what you desire.
Okay.
And
Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Yeah.
Yes,
Rukmini
Mataji.
Mataji.
Yes, Mataji. Mataji, Krishna can grant anything. But if we desire to become like Ambani, he can grant that also. If we desire this for his service only. If we desire for the service of the Lord, then he can grant us even become an Ambani, become like Ambani. But if we want this for our sense gratification, then he never grant this.
Any point which is different from whatever we have discussed?
No, I wanted to add why we should approach him is because when we approach him, although he knows what is there in our heart and what is our desire, but when we ask him directly, then it attracts his attention.
Okay. Rukmini?
Mataji, one thing I want to, like Krishna is the only one who loves me so very much. No other person being, he's the supreme person who loves me, and he knows what is best for me. And he only wants that somehow, yes, I am offender, that he only wants that he arranges the life of a person or a soul like that he may come back to me. If by becoming Ambani, I will go back home, back to Godhead, for sure he will grant. And if he knows that if I get the opulence, I will be stay in material world, then he will not.
Okay, Manohar Rish Prabhu, what's your point?
I'm still on my stand that he has all opulence. This is my desire, that with which desire I'm going. And
okay.
It's all my consciousness which depends.
Okay, so thank you very much for a very nice discussion. So Krishna, yes, we should approach Krishna. That was my first question, that whatever may be our desire, we should lay it out in front of him. And like you all said, that's the way to have a relationship. Relationship means that Guyam Akhyati Prichati. We say what is deep in our heart, and we say that in front of the Lord, and he appreciates that very much. And here we can see from the example of Kardama Muni also, that he's going and asking the Lord that I want a wife. I want a wife who's suitable for me. So by his example, we can learn that this is the way to have a relationship with the Lord. And second, my question was, when Manohar Rich Prabhu was saying, so the question was that, will Krishna grant us everything that we ask for? So the answer is yes and no. Yes, in the sense, like I don't know who said it, that if we can handle it, he will fulfill that desire. So, but if we can't handle it and it is going to be detrimental for our Krishna consciousness, he will not give us that. So even in Prabhupada, in one conversation, somebody asked him that Prabhupada, Sudama got so much from Krishna without asking. So even when we ask, why doesn't Krishna give it to us? So Prabhupada says that because he knows that Sudama is self-controlled and he can handle it. But he knows that if he gave you that kind of opulence, you will go back in the material world completely. You'll become entangled. So he doesn't give it to you. So Krishna, like Rukmini was also saying, that Krishna is our ever well-wisher. He's our eternal father. He exactly knows what is going to be beneficial for us. And even if it is our desire, he can give us some facility so that some of our desires can be fulfilled, but he will not give us complete facility till the time we are in a position to handle it. Or in the case of Dhruva Maharaj, he gives him, he gives him a planet which does not get destroyed, which is bigger than Brahma's planet, which is higher than Brahma's planet, his grandfather. He gives him that. But when he has actually become purified, he has understood that this is such a stupid desire to have. I don't really need it. I'm asking for pieces of glass when I can actually get diamonds. So this is very, very foolish on my part to ask for such a desire. And in that case, then Krishna gives him that, no, you go and now you rule. Because I don't want that people point finger at me and say, let's say Dhruva came to you, he became a pure devotee, yet you did not fulfill his desire. He wanted to set that example that even if you have a material desire, you come to me, because I will fulfill even a material desire, but only after purification, if you can handle it. If it is going to be a disturbance in your bhajan, if it is going to be a disturbance in your relationship with me, if it is going to be a disturbance in your Krishna consciousness, then no. But then Krishna will purify us in such a way that we will realize that what we are asking was really stupid. We don't really want it. So he works in very mystical ways. In some cases you'll see he'll supply, and in some cases he won't supply, because he knows that you cannot handle it. So Prabhupada will talk about this. We'll get to hear from Prabhupada also about this. Okay, so Prabhupada says that he never disappoints a sincere devotee regardless of what he wants, but he never allows anything which will be detrimental to the individual's devotional service. Golden words from Prabhupada right here at the end of this purport. Because what will happen? We become more deeply entangled in Krishna's illusory energy if we are not qualified to handle it. So when we ask for a desire that I want this to fulfill this service, I have this service and I am in charge of making a temple. I need Lakshmi for that temple. Please, arrange for that Lakshmi so that that temple can be made. Then Krishna makes arrangement through different donors who will come forth and who will, sponsor different things, and the temple can be made. But at the same time, he's not going to give it to us while we are sitting idle. We have to work towards it. When we work towards it, then our purification happens, and then Krishna also provides. But he'll never provide anything if we want to enjoy independently of him. That, okay, I just want to enjoy in this material world. That is not going to happen, because he knows that the individual will be completely entangled in the illusory activities, and that's going to be very detrimental. Okay, let's go. Yes, Rai Ramananda Prabhu.
Mataji, it is for the devotees mentioned, but for the non-devotee, if whatever he desire, then Lord will.
Krishna will purify him first. If a non-devotee desires, Krishna does not give it, he'll purify him first. Because that's why non-devotees go to whom? We read in Bhagavad Gita. Demigods, because they figure that I've been asking Krishna for a while, he's not doing anything about it. And I heard somewhere that if you go to demigods, your desires will be very easily fulfilled. That's why they go to the demigods. Because if they came to Krishna, then he will first purify them. He will first purify everybody. And then after that, he can, or depending, because he's Swarat, he knows what exactly is good for us. And then depending on where we are at, he will fulfill our desire or not. Okay, let's continue. 24. Who's reading?
What's your name, Prabhu?
My turn.
I think.
Text 24. The Lord continued, my dear Rishi, O leader of all of the living entities, for those who serve me in devotion by worshipping me, especially person like you who have given up everything unto me, there is never any question of frustration.
Yeah, so Prabhupada says, even if he has some desires, one engaged in the service of the Lord is never frustrated. Why? Because he will get his desire, but after purification, there'll be no frustration. And then he says, there is no frustration for any of these four classes of men. What are these four classes of Sakam Bhaktas?
Artha, Jigyasu.
And Jnani. So, and each is endowed with a desired result of his worship. He's given, but in such a way that it is not entangling. And also at the same time, we have to remember that when we approach the Lord for something, when we don't approach the demigods, because when we approach the demigods, the results that we get are entangling, because it is for enjoyment that will entangle us in this world. But when the Lord gives the same result, when we approach the Lord and he gives a similar result, that one asks for some wealth or opulence, and he gives it, then it is not entangling. Whatever is given by Krishna is always growthful. It will always result in our advancement. But whatever is given by the demigods will result in bondage. So we have to remember that when Krishna gives Lakshmi to a devotee, that Lakshmi is not going to entangle him. Priya Satyabhama?
Sorry, Mataji, it just happened on its own. So sorry.
Oh, okay, no problem. Next translation, 25.
The Emperor Swayambhu Manu, the son of Lord Brahma, who is well known for his righteous acts, has his seat in Brahmavrat and rules over the earth with its 7 oceans.
So the Lord is now telling him about Swayambhuva Manu, that Swayambhuva Manu, he's a son of Brahma and he's a very righteous person. And he lives where? In a Brahmavarta. So the Lord is now going to tell him about Devahuti. So he's starting from Swayambhuva Manu. Next.
Text 26. The day after tomorrow, O Brahman, that celebrated emperor, who is expert in religious activities, will come here with his queen, Shatrupa, wishing to see you.
Next.
He has a grown-up daughter whose eyes are black. She is ready for marriage, and she has got good character and all good qualities. She is also searching for a good husband. My dear sir, her parents will come to see you. You are exactly suitable for her, just to deliver their daughter as you.
So saying that they will come with their daughter, who's extremely qualified. Next.
28. That princess, O holy sage, will be just the type you have been thinking of in your heart for all these long years. She will soon be yours and will serve you to your heart's content.
We're saying that, she is the perfect choice for you. And she will not only, be a suitable wife for you, but she's also going to serve you. And Prabhupada in the purport says that only by God's grace can one get a nice wife just as he desires. Similarly, it is only by God's grace that a girl gets a husband suitable to her heart. Thus, it is said that if we pray to the Supreme Lord in every transaction of our material existence, everything will be done very nicely and just suitable to our heart's desire. In other words, in all circumstances, we must take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and depend completely upon his decision. Man proposes, God disposes. The fulfillment of desire, therefore, should be entrusted to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that is the nicest solution. And then further down, he says that if we depend on the choice of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we will receive benedictions in greater opulence than we desire. So what are the examples of this? to receive benedictions in greater opulence than we desire?
Dhruv Maharaj.
Dhruv Maharaj. Who else?
Even Sudama.
Okay, and somebody said something else. Okay. Yeah, Sudama and Dhruv Maharaj. These are the two examples that come to the mind immediately. Next, text 29.
She will bring forth 9 daughters from the seed sown in her by you, and through the daughters you beget, the sages will duly beget children.
30.
With your heart cleansed by properly carrying out my command, resigning to me the fruits of all your acts, you will finally attain to me.
Yeah. So this is the benefit of depending on Krishna. What he's saying, you'll get a wife, you'll have children, and then you will finally attain to me. That finally, even though you'll have your desires fulfilled, you have many desires, but finally you'll attain to me. Prabhupada in the purport says, in the middle of the purport, all activities, therefore, whether for the welfare of families, societies, country, or humanity at large, must be performed in Krishna consciousness. And then he says, similarly, if we act in Krishna consciousness under the direction of the Lord and his representative, then everything is sanctified. That is the indication given to Kardama Muni, who acted on it and therefore received the most excellent wife and child, as will be disclosed in later verses. Rukmini?
Mataji, in my mind, his Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and his divine guest Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj is coming. Bhaktivinoda Thakur also asks for a son like him. So the same thing it's going.
So that ray of Vishnu to help me, propagate this message. I need somebody who's powerful who can actually take this message across. Yes. Thank you. Very nice example. 31.
Showing compassion to all living entities, you will attain self-realization. Giving assurance of safety to all, you will perceive your own self as well as all the universes in me and myself in you.
Yeah, so the Lord is saying, showing compassion to all living entities, you will attain self-realization. Means compassion is shown in which ashram? Grihastha ashram, to all living entities. So in Grihastha, Grihastha ashram, by acting properly, you will attain self-realization. And giving assurance of safety to all, making everybody fearless. This is sannyas ashram. And after that, when you take sannyas ashram, you will perceive your own self as well as all the universes in me and myself in you. So Prabhupada then talks about how everything is Krishna's energy. And then later in the first paragraph towards the end, he says that everything should be considered a product of Lord's energy, and therefore everything should be employed in the service of the Lord. One's energy should be utilized for one's self-interest, and that is the perfection of the energy. So everything that we have is actually Krishna's energy, whether it's skills, whether it's opulence, whatever. So it should be utilized where? In the service of the Lord. This energy can be utilized for real self-interest if one is compassionate. So he's talking about how, this energy should be utilized to save oneself and to save others. A person in Krishna consciousness, a devotee of the Lord, is always compassionate. He's not satisfied that only he himself is a devotee, but he tries to distribute the knowledge of devotional service to everyone. And then in the third paragraph, he talks about the 3 classes of devotee, like the second class, third class, and the first class. And then he says that the first class devotee gives assurance to every living being that there is no fear of this material existence. He's talking about a Paramahansa. And in the fourth paragraph in the beginning, he says it is indicated here that Kardama Muni was directed by the Lord to be very compassionate and liberal in his householder life and to give assurance to the people in his renounced life. So show compassion in your Grihastha life and give fearlessness to people when you are in the renounced life. And at the end of this paragraph, he says the devotee should show mercy to the fallen souls and also give them the assurance of fearlessness. As soon as one becomes a devotee of the Lord, he is convinced that he is protected by the Lord, and fear itself is afraid of Lord. Therefore, what has he to do with fearfulness? And then fifth paragraph, and he says after a few lines, a person who's a householder but is initiated by a sannyasi has the duty to spread Krishna consciousness at home. This is the compassion of a householder. As far as possible, he should call his friends and neighbors to his house, hold classes in Krishna consciousness. Holding a class means chanting the holy name of Krishna and speaking from Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam. And then he says the householder's duty is to earn money because a sannyasi is not supposed to earn money, but is completely dependent on the householder. The householder should earn money by business or by profession and spend at least 50% of his income to spread Krishna consciousness. 25% he can spend on for his family and 25% he should save to meet emergencies. So this is an example given by Rupa Goswami also. We hear about that. And the last para, he says, actually to be one with Supreme Lord means to be one with the interest of the Lord. Becoming one with the Supreme Lord does not imply becoming as great as the Supreme Lord. It is impossible. The part is never equal to the whole. And then he says, the Lord wants every living entity to always think about him, to be his devotee and always worship him. Ye manmanabhav madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. This is clearly stated in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna wants everyone always to think of him. Everyone should offer obeisances to Krishna. This is the will of the Supreme Lord, and devotees should try to fulfill his desire. Since the Lord is unlimited, his desire is also unlimited. There is no stoppage, and therefore the service of the devotee is also unlimited. So a very wonderful purport by Srila Prabhupada, and he's reinforcing what is the desire of the Lord and how we should all try to fulfill that desire of the Lord, become one with his desire. So it's 11:25. Maybe we can take a break for 15 minutes and come back at 11:40. Okay. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. May I request more devotees to switch on your camera, please? Some of you I have never seen. This is the 5th class. I've never seen some of you at all. So please switch on your cameras. 32.
Mataji,
Amrendra Prabhu, yes.
Mataji, I'm having one question.
Okay.
Mataji, first question is, you have told the duty of a sannyasi or duty of a brahmachari, grihastha. So what is the duty of brahmachari, Mataji? Because
Prabhupada makes it very clear
nor
that
sannyasi.
the duty of a brahmachari is controlling the mind and following the order of the spiritual master.
Okay. So Mataji, it's a similar of grihastha also. Grihastha should also control his mind.
But
And
brahmachari is supposed to serve his spiritual master in even menial ways. So the personal service is given by brahmachari. Grihasthas serve in a different manner. Vanaprasthi is serve in a different manner, and sannyasi serve in a different manner. Everyone has their duty cut out.
okay, Mataji. And Mataji, we have seen in our society that there's so many grihastha who don't earn too much so that they can spend 50% in dharma or in temple, and in how they will maintain their home in 25% only of their income.
So this is the ideal standard given by Prabhupada. This is ideally where we should try to reach. But depending on what one's situation is, what is practical for one should accordingly do this, give a certain percentage of the income. Most of the spiritual masters say they start with 10%. That 10% of your income give to the service of the Lord and slowly build on that. So it is to be done very practically to see where you are at, what you can give. And this is the ideal situation given in our scriptures. Prabhupada is giving us the ideal situation.
Okay, Mataji. We should do according to our condition.
Our
condition, whatever financial condition.
What is practical for us, but one should start with at least 10%.
Okay. And Mataji, one more question, please. That if Kardam Muni was so much renounced, then why he is going to marry Mataji? And if suppose if he want to give a chance to Jiva to take birth, then why Narad Muni and Chatus Kumar has not done this?
It is everyone's choice and mentality. We can serve the Lord in the mentality that suits us. So when 4 Kumaras decide that they don't want to get entangled and they don't want to grow older, Brahma, it is mentioned, became a little angry that, you're not following my order. But the explanation by Acharyas is that since they were going to use that life for the service of the Lord, for self-realization, that's okay. So then that Pitra Rin is not there. But if you're not going to do that, and if you have this desire that I want to serve the Lord after, I want to follow the order of my father and I want to also serve the Lord. And that's what Kardam Muni is trying to do. So it depends on individual's choice.
Mataji, after marrying with Dehuti, he was living life like a sannyasi. He was doing full-time japa and yagya. And after begetting child also, he got sannyas.
Yeah, so he'll say in the coming verses, I think in the next chapter, he'll very clearly tell Swayambhuva Manu that I will marry your daughter, I will have children with her, and as soon as I have a son, as soon as I have a son, I will leave. I'll take sannyas because I want to then just solely focus on self-realization, on my service to the Lord. I don't want to get entangled in grihastha life. So he will do his duty being a very Krishna conscious grihastha, and after a certain period, then he will completely renounce everything and devote his entire energy in the service of the Lord through meditation.
Mentality. So he want to go in Grihastha life.
See, the thing is, the
Very-
principle is to serve the Lord. How
Ji.
each one of us decides to serve the Lord depends on our mentality. You know,
Ji.
what is our nature? So
Yes, ma'am.
you may have a certain nature, and that's how you can serve the Lord. Somebody else may have a certain nature, and that's how they can serve the Lord. And you know, there's no telling that why this person didn't do it this way or that person didn't do it that way. You know, it is the choice and nature. And everyone has a desire or right to choose and decide how they want to serve the Lord.
Yes, Mataji. That is my confusion, Mataji. That if we so renounce from the very birth or very, matlab, before marriage, you also living like a sannyasi. Then why he entangled? This is my doubt, actually, Mataji.
Yeah, so Kardamuni probably wanted to serve the Lord like that by, you know, and also if you know that if I enter Grihastha ashram and Supreme Lord is going to be born out of me, so isn't that choice a little easy to make?
Then Mataji, why he has taken sannyas after?
Yeah, so that
Krishna has come
yeah,
in
yeah,
his
yeah.
home. And he
Hold
takes
on.
sannyas.
Let's wait for Bhagavatam to answer our questions. You know, this is all going to come in the subsequent chapters. And we will see that why he does that, and you know what to say of the fact that as soon as Supreme Lord is born, he leaves. I mean, you know, how do we really understand that? All this will come. So let's just wait. These questions will be answered.
Okay.
Okay. Jagat Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji, is it the same thing that we previously discussed, that the Prabhupada says to enjoy according to the present position?
Yeah,
Is
it can be. Yeah, it can be extrapolated to that yes, you know, depending on you can choose to serve according to your nature. See, the thing is, the principle is to serve. How each one of us serves is according to our nature, what works for us and what doesn't work for us. So, you know, principle is service, and how you do it is something that you can choose according to your nature. Okay. 32. Who's reading?
O great sage, I shall manifest my own planetary portion through your wife Devahuti along with your 9 daughters, and I shall instruct her in the system of philosophy that deals with the ultimate principles or categories.
So the Lord is also confirming here that I shall appear. And Prabhupada says in this purport towards the end, in the absolute world, the name Krishna is the transcendental sound representation of the Lord. There is no potential difference between his quality, name, form, etc. If we chant the name of the Lord Hare Krishna, that has as much potency as the Lord himself. There is no potential difference between the form of the Lord whom we worship and the form of the Lord in the temple. One should not think that one is worshipping a doll or statue of the Lord, even if others consider it to be a statue, because there is not potential difference. One gets the same result by worshipping the statue of the Lord or by Lord himself. This is the science of Krishna consciousness. So in the first paragraph, Prabhupada discusses Sankhya Yoga. And he says that, you know, how the purpose of Sankhya Yoga is also to render service to the Lord. And now he's talking about how he's non-different from his holy name, his deity form, and one can actually derive same result as worshipping the Lord in his personal form directly. 33.
Charan Prabhuji. Antarami Balram Prabhuji.
Maitreya went on. Thus, having spoken to Kardam Muni, the Lord, who reveals himself only when the senses are in Krishna consciousness, departed from that lake called Bindu Sarovar, which was encircled by the river Saraswati.
Yeah, so Srila Jiva Goswami mentioned in Bhakti Sandarbha that Kardam Muni's devotional service is not a gross material, you know, sense gratification or material motivation. Rather, he's doing this as a moral obligation because he dutifully wanted to obey his father, Lord Brahma's order to create a progeny. So the Lord was really happy with Kardama's offering of his prescribed duty. You know, we can worship the Lord in many ways, even by offering our prescribed duty to him. And what did the Lord do? When he did that, the Lord became so pleased that he shed tears. And Prabhupada will talk about this later. He shed tears of delight on seeing that sage. And that tears formed a lake called Bindu Sarovar. So here we see a mention of Bindu Sarovar. And this is how this Bindu Sarovar was formed. So Prabhupada says in the purport, one word in this verse is very significant. The Lord is stated here to be Pratyag Akshaja. He is imperceptible to material senses, but still he can be seen. This appears to be contradictory. We have material senses, but how can we see the Lord? He is called Adhokshaja, which means he cannot be seen by the material senses. Akshaja means knowledge perceived by material senses. Because the Lord is not an object that can be understood by speculation with our material senses, he is also called Ajita. He will conquer, but no one can conquer him. What does it mean then that he can still be seen? It is explained that no one can hear the transcendental name of Krishna, no one can understand his transcendental form, no one can assimilate his transcendental pastimes. It is not possible. Then how is it possible that he can be seen and understood? So when one is trained in devotional service and renders service unto him, gradually one's senses are purified of material contamination. Sevan mukhe jivado. When one's senses are thus purified, then one can see, one can understand, one can hear, and so on. The purification of the material senses and perception of the transcendental form, name, and quality of Krishna are combined together in one word, Pratyag Akshaja, which is used here. So Prabhupada is, in his purport, is talking about how, if we have material senses, then how can we perceive his form, his holy name? And he's saying that only by purification will that happen. 34.
While the sage stood looking on, the Lord left by the pathway leading to Vaikuntha, a path extolled by all great liberated souls. The sage stood listening as the hymns forming the basis of the Samaveda were vibrated by the flapping wings of the Lord's carrier, Garud.
So the Lord is leaving and Kardama can see the path back to Vaikuntha. You know, what is the path that the Lord is taking to go back to Vaikuntha? And as he's standing there, he can hear the wings of Garuda vibrating Samaveda verses. You know, so Garuda is what? He's a Kinnara, and that's the service of Kinnaras, that they sing for the pleasure of the Lord. So here Garuda is also flapping his wings for the pleasure of the Lord, and the Samaveda verses are being vibrated. So Prabhupada says in the second para of this purport, only those who are already liberated from material bondage can become devotees of the Lord. Those who are not liberated from material bondage cannot understand transcendental devotional service. So how do we understand this? Only those who are already liberated from material bondage can become devotees of the Lord.
Mataji,
Hanji.
as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 7:28, like Yesam Pantagatam Papam Janana, who is pious, matlab, who is having pious activity credits, or who is impious born, then one can fix in devotional service. It may be answered.
Yeah, that's my question. That one who's not materially liberated or under material bondage, how can that person become a devotee of the Lord? So Prabhupada is saying that they cannot. So how do we understand? What are we doing here? Are we all claiming to be out of material bondage, or are we claiming to be non-devotees? What's really going on?
They are practicing devotees.
We are practicing devotees. Okay. Who else?
They're trying to follow the footsteps of the devotees, to follow the instructions.
Okay, good. Manohar Dwaj Prabhu.
If we take the example of the verse we were reading, like when Vidura was saying to Maitreya Muni that either the person who are fully in material opulence or material enjoyment, or the people who are devotees can be fully devotee, or can be fully have a transcendental bliss. Otherwise, others are suffering. So that means that there are two categories. If one is materially attached, he cannot be a devotee. So from that verse, we can see the complete categorization of the two people altogether.
Okay, so I'll come to that. Rukmini?
Mataji, I would think that at the level of asati, when there is a anarth nivritti, actually bhakti starts from there. So it is going in my mind that when there is a anarth nivritti, then.
So what is the next level after anarth nivritti? Is it asakti?
Ruchi asakti.
No, after anarth nivritti, what is the next
Nishtha.
level?
Nishtha.
Nishtha. So yes, after anarth nivritti, when a person is fixed in devotional service, then Mataji, liberation is not far.
We are okay. Let me read what Prabhupada is saying again. Only those who are already liberated from material bondage can become devotees of the Lord. What are the others doing?
Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Mataji, once I asked with Gopal Krishna Goswami Maharaj, that Maharaj, we are not pure and we are trying to do preaching, and without purity, how we can do? So Maharaj has told me that actually we are following. Maharaj told me like, I am following Prabhupada and I am ordering you all. So you are following the order of Prabhupada and it is pure devotion. He answered me like that. It can be.
Yeah. Okay. Rukmini, you want to say something?
Mataji, I'm at the same page. Yes, when after anarth nivritti, nishtha, at the stage of nishtha, so I'm just the person is fixed on that level. So that liberation is not far. Again, sorry.
It's not. I'm not talking really liberation. I'm talking that already liberated from material bondage can become devotee. So if one is not liberated from material bondage, can one not become a devotee? Priya Satyabhama?
Maji, can we say that, by following the footsteps, like already devotees have said, by following the footsteps of the previous acharyas and the instructions of the guru, we are practicing the sadhana bhakti, and we're trying to purify ourselves to come on that level.
Yeah.
So we're trying to become a devotee.
Yeah. So like we earlier also, somebody said that we are actually practicing devotees. We are practicing to become devotees. And as we follow in the footsteps of our acharyas and spiritual master, then we slowly come to that platform where we actually become devotees just by following their instructions. But sadhana means practice. Till the time we are doing sadhana bhakti, it is a practice of devotional service. So, okay, then Prabhupada says towards the end, Kardamuni was a liberated soul who saw the Supreme Lord in person, face to face. There was no doubt that he was liberated. Thus, he could see Garuda carrying the Lord on the way to Vaikuntha and hearing the flapping of his wings, vibrating the sound of Hare Krishna, the essence of Samaved. So Prabhupada doesn't miss any opportunity to, remind us that it is Hare Krishna that we need to focus on. That essence of all Vedas, everything is in the holy name. And also, it's not an ordinary thing. Kardamuni is not an ordinary personality. He is a very, very elevated soul. So we should not think that since he's asking the Lord for a suitable wife, it is a mundane request. Okay, something very interesting has happened. When I said, when I asked everybody to switch on the cameras, many people switched it on. And after 5 minutes, people have all switched off their cameras. So please keep it, keep it switched on. 35.
Gita Krishna Prabhuji.
Thus, after the departure of the Lord, the worshipful sage Kardam stayed on the bank of Bindu Sarovar, awaiting the time of which the Lord has.
Okay, so now he's waiting. 36.
Swayambhuva Manu with his wife mounted his chariot, which was decorated with golden ornaments. Placing his daughter on it with them, he began traveling all over the world. All over the earth, sorry.
Okay, so now Swayambhuva Manu on the other side, he is mounting a chariot and he is starting for Bindu Sarovar. Next.
O Vidura, they reached the hermitage of the sage who had just completed his vows of austerity on the very day foretold by the Lord.
So see the arrangement of the Lord. The day he completed his vow of austerity, that's the day Swayambhuva Manu reached there. Next. Now the next 7 verses are going to describe the hermitage of Kardama Muni. So let's hear the description. Next.
The
39.
holy lake Bindu Sarovar, flooded by waters of river Saraswati, was resorted to by host of eminent sages. Its holy water was not only auspicious but as sweet as nectar. It was called Bindu Sarovar because drop of tears had fallen there from the eyes of the Lord, who was overwhelmed by extreme compassion for the sage who had sought his protection.
So in the purport, Prabhupada describes, Kardam underwent austerities to gain the causeless mercy of the Lord. And when the Lord arrived there, he was so compassionate that in pleasure he shed tears, which became Bindu Sarovar. Bindu Sarovar, therefore, is worshipped by great sages and learned scholars because, according to the philosophy of the absolute truth, the Lord and the tears from his eyes are not different. Just as drops of perspiration which fell from the toe of the Lord became sacred Ganges, so teardrops from the transcendental eyes of the Lord became Bindu Sarovar. 40.
The shore of the lake was surrounded by clusters of pious trees and creepers, rich in fruits and flowers of all seasons, that afforded shelter to pious animals and birds, which uttered various cries. It was adorned by the beauty of the groves of forest trees.
Okay, so here the translation is about pious trees. Which trees are called pious?
Tulsi and Amalaka.
Tulsi, Amalaka, and some more.
Marji, the ones that bear fruit.
Yeah, the ones that bear fruit are pious trees. Yes. So, which are impious trees?
The one that those
lot
which
of ornamental trees that we see, they are, because they don't give flowers, they don't give fruits, so they are called impious. Which flowers are pious and which flowers are impious?
The fragrant flowers that can be offered, Mataji, they are the pious ones. Similarly, the non-fragrant flowers which cannot be offered are the impious ones.
Yes. So now this hermitage is surrounded, the shore of the lake was surrounded by clusters of pious trees, creepers, which are rich in fruits and flowers, and they give shelter to all kind of species. So Prabhupada actually says this, that trees which do not bear nice fruit or flowers are considered impious. The birds which are very nasty, such as crows, are considered impious. In the land surrounding Bindu Sarovar, there was not a single impious bird or tree. And every tree bore fruits and flowers, and every bird sang the glories of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. 41.
The area resounded with the notes of overjoyed bees wandered there, intoxicated peacocks proudly danced, and many cuckoos called one another.
So if we see this verse, it's such a beautiful verse. Matta dvija ganer ghushtam, matta bhramar vibhramam, matta barhi natotapam, avan matta kokilam. So matta word, which means intoxicated, overjoyed, is being used in every sentence to actually address everybody was intoxicated, everybody was overjoyed. Next, 42, 43.
Charan Prabhuji, is he not here? Antaram Vinam Prabhuji.
Lake Bindu was adorned by flowering trees such as Kadamba, Champak, Ashok, Karanj, Bakul, Asan, Kund, Mandar, Kutaj, and young mango trees. The air was filled with the pleasing notes of Karandwa ducks, flowers, swans, ospreys, waterfowl, cranes, chakarwaks, and chakuras.
44.
Its shores abounded with deer, boars, porcupines, gavayas, elephants, baboons, lions, monkeys, mongooses, and musk deer.
So Prabhupada in the purport says that musk deer are not found in every forest, but only in places like Musk Sarovar. And they're always intoxicated by the aroma of musk secreted from their navels. Gavayas, the species of cow mentioned herein, bear a bunch of hair at the end of their tails, which are used for the service of the deities as charmers. 45, 47.
Entering that most sacred spot, with his daughter, and going near the sage, the first monarch, saw the sage sitting in his hermitage, having just propitiated the secret spot by pouring oblation into it. His body shone most brilliantly. Though he had engaged in austere penance for a long time, he was not emaciated, for the Lord had cast his affectionate sidelong glance upon him, and he had also heard the nectar flowing from the moonlight words of his Lord. The sage was tall, his eyes were black, like the petals of a lotus, and he had matted locks on his head. He was clad in rags. Brahmana approached and saw him. He was somewhat soiled, like an unpolished gem.
Yeah, so why was the sage not emaciated?
Because of his association with the Lord.
Because the Lord had cast his affectionate sidelong glance upon him, and he had also heard from the Lord. So because of these two reasons, even though he was performing austerities, he was not emaciated. And in the purport, Prabhupada says, here are some descriptions of the brahmachari yogi. In the morning, the first duty of the brahmachari seeking spiritual elevation is huta huta shan, to offer sacrificial oblations to the Supreme Lord. Then Prabhupada further on says the brahmachari must rise early in the morning and after placing himself, should chant the holy name of the Lord. So Amarendra Hari Prabhu, some more instructions for brahmacharis here. And towards the end of this purport, Prabhupada says that it is essential that a brahmachari engaged in spiritual advancement look very healthy and lustrous. The comparison of the sage to an unpolished gem is very appropriate. Even if a gem just taken from a mine looks unpolished, the luster of the gem cannot be stopped. Similarly, although Kardama was not properly dressed, his body was not properly cleansed, his overall appearance was gem-like. So that's the reason he's known as unpolished gem. Next, 48.
Seeing that monarch had come to his hermitage and was bowing before him, the sage greeted him with benediction and received him with due honor.
So Prabhupada says that Emperor Swambhuva Manu not only approached the cottage of dried leaves possessed by the hermit Kardama, but also offered respectful obeisances unto him. Similarly, it was the duty of the hermit to offer blessings to kings who used to approach his hermitage in the jungle. So Swambhuva Manu approached and offered obeisances because he is in the role of a Kshatriya and Kardama Muni is in the role of a Brahmana. And then Kardama Muni reciprocated by giving him blessings. Next.
After receiving the sage's attention, the king sat down and was silent. Recalling the instructions of the Lord, Kardam then spoke to the king as follows, delighting him with his sweet essence.
Next.
The tour you have undertaken, O Lord, is surely intended to protect the virtuous and kill the demons, since you embody the protecting energy of Sri Hari.
Yeah, so you are a Kshatriya. Now he's going to glorify him that, you are a Kshatriya and you are embodied with the protective energy of the Lord. So Prabhupada says in the purport, it appears that from many Vedic literature, especially histories like Srimad Bhagavatam and the Puranas, that the pious kings of old used to tour their kingdoms in order to give protection to the pious citizens and to chastise or kill the impious. Sometimes they used to kill animals in the forest to practice the killing art, because without such practice, they would not be able to kill the undesirable elements. Such Kshatriyas are allowed to commit violence in that way because violence for a good purpose is a part of their duty. And after two sentences, Prabhupada says, the protecting energy of the king is supposed to be the energy of the Supreme Lord. And then later he says, the Lord descends to give protection to the pious and kill the demons. Paritranaya sadhuna vinashaya cha dushkritam. The potency, therefore, to give protection to the pious and kill the demons or undesirables is directly energy from the Supreme Lord. Next.
You assume, when necessary, the part of the sun god, the moon god, Agni, the god of fire, Indra, the lord of paradise, Vayu, the wind god, Yama, the god of punishment, Dharma, the god of piety, and Varuna, the god presiding over the waters, are obeisances to you, who are none other than Lord Vishnu.
Yeah, so he's now telling the king, the Swambhuva Manu, that how you actually, assume different roles to carry out different responsibilities. So he first compares him to a sun god. Why? How is the comparison to sun god appropriate?
Because of the effulgence, Mataji?
Effulgence, yes. Something more?
Sun is the center of the universe.
Sun is the center of the universe. Okay, what else? What does the sun do?
Provide sustenance like heat and light that is necessary for the living.
Provide sustenance, yes.
Dispels the darkness.
Dispels darkness of ignorance, yes. Rukmini?
Mataji, same.
Okay. And
Mataji,
also,
the sun also does one more function. It takes away the smell of the filthy objects without being affected.
yeah, so purifies. And also, this comes in 10th canto and maybe even before, that sun, what absorbs it, all the water gets evaporated because of the sun, and then the sun returns that water in the form of rain. So a king, a pious king, a properly situated king extracts taxes and then uses that money from the taxes to carry out many social welfare activities. So in that sense also, a pious king is compared to a sun. And then moon god. How
all
Yes.
the vegetables are grown because of moonlight only. So it is very, very much essential to.
So what does a king do? So why should a king be compared to a moon god?
Mataji, king nourishes the subjects. So moon nourishes in the through the vegetables
how does a
and
king
gives
nourish?
rasas.
How does a king nourish?
By providing so many things to the subjects.
Yeah, for even their spiritual elevation. And also because moon is supposed to be cooling. So a king, through his affectionate glances, through his dealings, actually satisfies everyone, cools them down. Next is Indra. No, the Agni, god of fire. How is he compared to Agni?
Punishing the wrongdoers, Mataji?
Punishing no, that's not Agni's job. What does Agni do?
It burns up the things.
It burns up everything. Okay, so what does the king do?
Forgives. He forgives.
He forgives. So Agni forgives. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, the king forgives as Agni destroys.
Okay.
Agni, all the things can be destroyed in Agni. So this way it was going in my mind.
Can it be equated with his giving punishment?
No, that will come.
Heat and light. Actually, the firework is heat and light.
Heat
so
and
warmth,
light.
warmth. King gives the warmth.
Warmth.
Care.
Okay. And also Agni, once once it becomes big, it becomes almost invincible. So in that sense, a king is compared to Agni because a king of great valor is considered to be invincible. Next is Indra. How Indra?
He is king of all demigods. And the king is also.
He's the king of the kings, okay.
In terms of opulence.
Opulence, okay.
In terms of management.
In terms of management, okay. What else? So it's a very interesting insight given by our acharyas that Indra with his thunderbolt levels all the mountains, makes the earth level so that farming can be carried out. So Manu will also do that. He will make sure that there's farming, there's prosperity in that sense. So that's why also he's compared to Indra. Yama.
Punishment.
Punishment. This is, he carries out justice. He will chastise the impious. Okay, Dharma.
Uphold the religious principles in all the circumstances.
Yeah, and he's righteous. He will protect Brahmanas and the cows. So in that sense, and Varuna?
Cooling breeze, again care.
More than cooling breeze, actually, Varuna is supposed to be like residing in deep ocean. So that way the king's character is going to be very deep and he'll have a lot of hidden treasures. So that's why he's compared to Varuna. So this is how Kardama is actually glorifying Swayambhuva Manu. And not only because he has all these qualities, but Manu is also a Mahajan. He's among the 12 Mahajans. So, and in this case, it is said that Swayambhuva Manu is also an incarnation of the Lord. So Kardama Muni is glorifying Manu. Next.
If you did not mount your victorious jeweled chariot, whose mere presence threatens culprits, if you did not produce fierce sounds by the twanging of your bow, if you did not roam about the world like the brilliant sun, leading a huge army whose trampling feet cause the globe of the earth to tremble, then all the moral laws governing the varnas and ashramas created by the Lord himself would be broken by the rogues and rascals.
So he's saying that a king must rule in a way so that the rogues and rascals don't just take over everything. So a king has to be like that. So Prabhupada in the purport says in the first paragraph towards this middle, human society means that society which is making progress towards spiritual realization. The most advanced human society was known as Arya. Arya refers to those who are advancing. So the question is, which society is advancing? Advancement does not mean creating material necessities unnecessarily, and thus wasting human energy in aggravation over so-called material comforts. Real advancement is advancement towards spiritual realization, and that's what an ideal king provides. And then the second paragraph, maybe somebody can read the whole paragraph. It's an interesting paragraph.
The institution of 4 varnas and 4 ashramas is confirmed herewith to be Bhagavad Rachita, which means designed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In Bhagavad Gita, it is also confirmed Chaturvanya Maya Shrishtam. The Lord says that the institution of 4 varnas and 4 ashramas is created by me. Anything created by the Lord cannot be closed or covered. The division of varnas and ashramas will continue to exist either in their original form or in the degraded form. But because they are created by the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they cannot be extinguished. They are like the sun, a creation of God, and therefore will remain. Either covered by clouds or in a clear sky, the sun will continue to exist. Similarly, when the Varnashrama system becomes degraded, it appears at the hereditary caste system. But in every society, there is an intelligent class of men, a martial class, a mercantile class, a liberal class, and a laborer class. When they are regulated for cooperation among communities, according to the Vedic principles, then there is a peace and spiritual advancement. But when there is a hatred and malpractice and mutual mistrust in the caste system, the whole system becomes degraded, and as stated herein, it creates a deplorable state. At the present moment, the entire world is in this deplorable condition because of giving rights to so many interests. This is due to the degradation of the four castes of Varnas and Ashramas.
Yeah, so Prabhupada is talking about Devi Varnashram and how it is natural. This kind of categorization is natural according to one's propensity. So there will, even if it is not officially present, but still people, there'll be people who have Brahminical inclination, there'll be people who have Kshatriya inclination, there'll be people who have Vaishya inclination, and there'll be people who have Shudra inclination. And the society can function when they all kind of come together in mutual interest, and that interest is service of Krishna, to serve the Lord. But when everyone comes together with their, multifarious interests to serve myself, me and mine, that's when the society degrades, because none of those interests are going to be carried out. You can imagine everybody's trying to just, serve their own interest. How's that going to work? How can there be any peace or any harmony in such a society? So Prabhupada is pointing that out. Rukmini?
Mataji, Varnashram system is different, and Devi Varnashram is when the goal is to serve the Lord.
Yeah, Devi Varnashram, in most of the places when Prabhupada talks about Varnashram, he's naturally referring to Devi Varnashram. And when he's not referring to Devi Varnashram, then he calls it caste system. Regular Varnashram is like a caste system, and Devi Varnashram is when Vishnu is in the center. So you'll see that he uses this word Devi Varnashram in some places, but mostly he will say Varnashram, Vedic society Varnashram. So that refers to Devi Varnashram.
Thank you.
55.
If you gave up all thought of the world situation, unrighteousness would flourish. For men who anchor only after money would be unopposed. Such miscreants would attack, and the world would perish.
So Kardama Muni is glorifying Swayambhuva Manu, that he has so much responsibility and he's playing such an important role in the society. So he's glorifying him like that. So Prabhupada, in the almost after 3 lines down, he says, in the institution of 4 Varnas and 4 ashrams, there are regular training principles for the classes of men. So they're all supposed to be trained how to function. How should a Brahmana function? How should a Kshatriya function? How should a sannyasi function? So they all need training. And then towards the end, Prabhupada says, thus society is now in chaos. There is neither peace nor prosperity because they are not functioning properly. There is no training and people are just doing whatever they feel like. So it is clearly stated herein that unless there is a vigilance of a strong king, impious, unqualified men will claim a certain status in the society, and that will make the social order perish. Last verse of this chapter.
In spite of all this, I ask you, O valiant king, the purpose for which you have come here, whatever it may be, we shall carry it out without reservation.
Yeah, so he's saying that you have come here for a purpose. So Prabhupada says, formerly it was customary that the sages used to go to the kings, and the kings used to visit the sages in their hermitages. Each was glad to fulfill the other's purpose. This reciprocal relationship is called Bhakti Karya. So why would sages go to the kings?
To smoothly practice their spiritual activities, not to get disturbed by any other, and to get all the required things for performing their yagyas and all.
So for basically facility to carry out their duties. Okay, Priya Satyabhama?
Mataji, to impart Vedic knowledge as well.
Yes, to impart Vedic knowledge as well. And why would the kings come to the sages?
To seek blessings.
To seek blessings and
Guidance.
guidance, yes. So we see even in Ramayana, Vishwamitra is a Brahmana and he goes to Dashrath. For what? Why did he go to Dashrath?
To seek
To
protection.
take
Yeah,
Protection.
to seek protection. That, we want to carry out our duties, we want to perform our yagyas, but we are not able to. So please come and protect us so we can carry out our yagyas. We can do our prescribed duties properly. So Prabhupada then says towards the end, the two were meant for mutual interest. The royal order would give protection to the Brahmanas for the cultivation of spiritual advancement in the society, and the Brahmanas would give their valuable instruction to the royal order on how the state and the citizens can gradually be elevated in spiritual perfection. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 3rd canto, 21st chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Conversation between Manu and Kardama. Now we can start the next chapter. I'm leaving it up to you. If you people think we are too tired, don't want to do it, we can stop here. And if you think let's take a 5-minute break and then do it, we can do that. Or if you think we can continue right away, we can do that. So I'm leaving it up to you. Rukmini?
Mataji, I want to share one thing. Then when we were reading this chapter, the Shiva also was coming in my mind, that as Kardam Muni has given the service by the Lord, and Lord Shiva has also, it's not easy service which he does. He's a master of mode of ignorance. All the bad elements, in which no one will take the poison. No, Hannah. So, like in this way, it's all about, as you said, the principle is to serve the Lord. And how difficult is the service which Shiva is taking care. And as per the when his Amrendra Hari Prabhu was asking, so like this is the only service which he is performing. So like Shiva is performing, and also Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur. So he is a 7th Goswami, but he begets also children. So like this, Mataji, just wanted to share.
Thank you. Jagat Mata Mataji.
Mamaji, the Kardamamni's character is very inspiring. I can say very deep. He knows himself. Yes, he's doing austerities, take the darshan of the Lordship, and then want to go to the Gharasthashram fulfill. It's so clear. But what I feel in my life, I don't know what actually I want. It's so clear in everything, so much. So how can we attain this kind of clarity, this kind of vision?
Only by the mercy of our spiritual masters. And I'm saying masters because there can be many. One Diksha Guru, but many Siksha Gurus. And by their mercy, we can attain the clarity as to where are we going, what is the purpose of our lives, how can we serve, what contribution can we do. So, yeah. Okay, so Rukmini is always excited. She wants to continue the session. So since no one else is saying anything, I'm carrying on. Chapter 22, the marriage of Kardama Muni and Devahuti. Yeah, please read.
Sri Maitreya said, after describing the greatness of the emperor's manifold qualities and activities, the sage became silent, and the emperor, feeling modesty, addressed him as follows.
Now we can see the Vedic culture. It's so sweet. How it is respectful, so respectful. It's not that Kardama Muni is saying that I'm a Brahmana, I'm situated at a higher level. So you glorify me, I'm not going to glorify you. Or it is not like Swayambhuva Manu thinks that, okay, I am the king, so you serve me, I'm not going to serve you, or you glorify me, I'm not going to glorify you. So we'll see how beautifully this Vedic society is organized. Everyone is respected, everyone's service is appreciated, and everyone has a role to play. It's not just like, one person is important and rest all are useless. It's not like that. So everyone is respected. So we'll see that in this chapter. Okay, carrying on. 2.
Manu replied, to expand himself in Vedic knowledge, Lord Brahma, the personified Veda, from his face created you. The Brahmanas, who are full of austerity, knowledge, and mystic power, and are averse to sense gratification.
Yeah. So very interesting. So here it said that Manu replied, to expand himself in Vedic knowledge. Lord Brahma, the personified Veda, from his face created you. What do we understand by to expand himself in Vedic knowledge? Brahma created you to expand himself in Vedic knowledge.
That means to spread the Vedic knowledge.
To propagate the Vedic knowledge. And if you look at the word for word, it is Atma Paripsaya, to protect himself by expanding. How? Because we saw that Brahma's creation also involves some species who were ready to eat him, who were running after him to eat him. So he is protecting himself by creating, by spreading the Vedic knowledge, so, so that good progeny can be created. So in that sense also he's protecting himself. So Manu says this, that all the Brahmanas were created for the purpose of propagating the Vedic knowledge. And these Brahmanas are full of austerity, knowledge, mystic power, and are averse to sense gratification. So in the purport, Prabhupada says, the purpose of the Vedas is to propagate the transcendental knowledge of the absolute truth. The Brahmanas are created from the mouth of the Supreme Person, and therefore they are meant to spread the knowledge of the Vedas in order to spread the glories of the Lord. Next.
For the protection of the Brahmanas, the 1,000-legged Supreme Being created us, the Kshatriyas, from his 1,000 arms. Hence the Brahmanas are said to be his heart and the Kshatriyas his arms.
So why are the Brahmanas his heart? Why are Brahmanas in Supreme Lord's heart? Rukmini?
Mataji, I can stay without my legs, but without heart, I cannot
Okay.
stay. So, but a society cannot be without the heart. So without the Brahmana. So Brahmanas are the heart of the society.
Papa says something like that, and he'll say that, the whole body is important, but without the heart, one cannot exist. Yes, and also because the Brahmanas have Krishna in their heart, and Krishna has Brahmanas in his heart. He says that, he'll say that in the 9th canto, where he'll talk about Ambarish Maharaj, that how, he is in my heart, how my devotee is in my heart, and I'm in my devotee's heart. So in that sense also, he is in their heart. So Prabhupada says, Kshatriyas are especially meant to maintain the Brahmanas, because if the Brahmanas are protected, then the head of civilization is protected. Brahmanas are supposed to be the head of the social body. And if head is clear and has not gone mad, then everything is in proper position. And towards the end, he says, Kshatriyas are especially meant to protect the Brahmanas, as is the supreme will of the Lord, Go Brahman Hitaya Cha. As within the body, the heart is a very important part. So the Brahmanas are also the important element in human society. The Kshatriyas are more like the whole body. Even though the whole body is bigger than the heart is more important. So that's why Manu is addressing Kardama like this. Okay, next.
That is why the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas protect each other as well as themselves, and the Lord himself, who is both cause and effect and is yet immutable, protects them through each other.
Yeah, so what he's saying, that Brahmanas and Kshatriya protect each other, and then they both are protected by the Supreme Lord. So how do Brahmanas protect Kshatriyas? By giving them proper counsel. They basically protect them through their austerities. So we see in so many, there are so many instances where Brahmanas actually protect the king by giving part of their austerities. So that's how Brahmanas protect the kings. And kings protect the Brahmanas by the power of their arms, by their strengths. They give protection. So Prabhupada in the purport says, the entire social structure of Varna and Ashram is a cooperative system meant to uplift all the highest platform, all to the highest platform of spiritual realization. The Brahmanas are intended to be protected by the Kshatriyas, and the Kshatriyas are also intended to be enlightened by the Brahmanas. When the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas cooperate nicely, and the other subordinate divisions, the Vaishyas or mercantile people, and the Shudras or laborer class automatically flourish. When there's cooperation between the two, then the whole society flourishes. The entire elaborate system of Vedic society was therefore based on the importance of Brahmana and Kshatriyas. The Lord is the real protector, but he is unattached to the affairs of protection. He creates Brahmana for the protection of the Kshatriyas and Kshatriyas for the protection of the Brahmanas. Then he says that every Varna basically has its own strength. At the end of this paragraph, he says, the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas and anything that we see are different energies acting upon one another. What do we understand by that? The Brahmanas and Kshatriyas and anything that we see are different energies acting upon one another.
Mataji, can we say that both are complementary to each other?
In what sense?
Brahmanas are very much necessary for Kshatriyas. Similarly, Kshatriyas are very much necessary for Brahmanas.
So that's correct. That's what Prabhupada is saying. But when he says are different energies acting upon one another, so he's talking about their different qualities. They're in different modes. They're in different modes. Brahmanas are primarily in mode of goodness and Kshatriyas are primarily passion. So they are, they basically act upon each other, as in that Brahmanas are very good at, very good at giving counsel, but they are not action-oriented people. Action is done by Kshatriyas. So to carry out the plan is done by Kshatriyas. So that's how they kind of cooperate with each other and act according to different energies. So this is the role that they play. Then Prabhupada says in the second para, although individual souls are all different, the super self or super soul is the supreme personality of Godhead. Individually, oneself may differ from others in certain qualities and may engage in different activities, such as those of a Brahmana, Kshatriya, or Vaishya. But when there is complete cooperation among different individual souls, the supreme personality of Godhead, as super soul Paramatma, being one in each individual soul, is pleased and gives them all protection. So ultimate protection is given by the Supreme Lord. When he sees that everybody is acting in harmony, he becomes pleased and then he gives his protection. Okay, so I'm reminded that once Giraj Maharaj mentions this, that he went to Prabhupada, went towards the end of Prabhupada's Vamalila, and he asked him that, Prabhupada, how will the movement continue in the future? How will the movement continue in the future? So does anybody know what Prabhupada said?
By the cooperation of the members of the society.
Yeah, but he said something very specific.
All of you will have to live together in harmony.
That's cooperation and harmony, yes. That's true. Prabhupada said that also, but to Giraj Maharaj, he said two words.
The love towards me will be shown how much you cooperate with each other.
Yeah, cooperation is fine, but there are two words that he used. He said by intelligence and organization. This is how this movement is going to continue. So intelligence is whose feature?
Brahmanas.
And organization is whose feature?
Kshatriyas.
Kshatriyas.
So by the proper cooperation between Kshatriyas and Brahmanas, this society will continue to flourish. Okay, text 5.
Mataji, one question is there. As we come to know, Brahmanas and Kshatriyas both are very much important. So what is the status of Vaishyas and Shudras in this scenario?
They're also, like I said, in Vedic society, everyone has a role to play. But Prabhupada compares that, head is the most important part in the body. We can't say that, oh, arm is useless or the leg is useless. We can't say that. They have a role to play, but head has a very important role to play. One can exist without an arm, one can exist without a leg, but one can't exist without a head. So that is why so much stress is given on a society with Brahmana and Kshatriya. But it does not mean that rest of the Varnas are not important. It does not mean that at all.
Okay, Mataji. Thank you.
Text 5.
Now I have resolved all my doubts simply by meeting you, for your lordship has very kindly and clearly explained the duty of a king who desires to protect his subjects.
Yeah. So in the purport, Prabhupada says, Manu described here with the result of seeing a great saintly person. Lord Chaitanya says that one should always try to associate with saintly persons, because if one establishes a proper association with a saintly person, even for a moment, one attains all perfection. Somehow or other, if one meets a saintly person and achieves his favor, then the entire mission of one's human life is fulfilled. Then towards the middle, he says, if one meets a saintly person completely engaged in transcendental duties and achieves his favor, then one's life mission becomes complete. What is not possible to achieve in thousands of lives can be achieved in one moment if there is an opportunity to meet a saintly person. Lava matra sadhu sangha sarva siddhi hoy. Okay, so I'm thinking we'll stop here. So next class will be on Saturday. So Saturday, Sunday, we'll try to finish this one and next of the 2 chapters. If it doesn't work, then maybe we can have an extra class for like an hour or so on Tuesday. Will that work?
Yes, I think so.
So we can keep it like from 7:30 to about 8:30, 1 hour, so that even those who are going to office and who have work can manage to attend that. But we'll try to finish it. If it doesn't work, then we'll take an extra class on Tuesday. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. Please accept my humble obeisances.
Hare
All
Krishna,
glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Mataji.
Hare Krishna,
Krishna.
Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so very much, Mataji.